Thank you for coming today. Welcome to the Millennial Jamaican, and today we're doing a part two discussion of tourism. And do you guys want to just do a brief intro of yourselves? Belinda and Tahira, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay,
having us. Go ahead, Melinda.
same. I'm Belinda Joye, a Caribbean YouTuber, I guess, and I'm also a student at Howard University.
Nice. Awesome. And my name is Tahira Banks. I am the co-founder of Thoughtful Digital Agency, and we're a digital marketing agency based in Anguilla in Houston, Texas.
Thank you, guys. So one of the first questions I want to ask you is about why have you noticed are some of the effects of tourism in your individual countries? Because even in the COVID-19 now, I know that there's a lot of different programs that are being established in the Caribbean just to make sure that tourists are coming over still, because it is such a huge part of our GDP in a lot of our countries. So who wants to go first?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
In St. Lucia specifically, I definitely feel that the government is leaning more towards kind of putting, like we kind of discussed before, the tourists before the people in some sense. I do think that they did do all they could during this coronavirus situation. I do think they handled it pretty well because right now St. Lucia is one of the safest places to be. So I give them that. But I do think that just in general, a lot of the things that they do kind of cater towards foreigners coming into our country. And then also the fact that you were talking about the advertising and how they advertise us, they put a lot of white people on our posters. They kind of showcase it as a place for people that's not us to come and enjoy what we have. And I don't think that tourism is a bad thing. And I think obviously that it helps our GDP and all the things like that. But I think that St. Lucia relies on tourism too much because it is our literally our base of economic success. Like it is what we do, and I think that we need to kind of invest into other things like more exportation of goods and other things like that to just find other ways for the country to survive without tourism. Because if you look at places like Trinidad, they have oil, they have all these other things that bring them income, and I feel like St. Lucia is a country where we don't really have that. So we're kind of at the mercy of everyone else but ourselves. And I feel like we need to just find a way to be independent enough and make enough money that we actually put our people first and cater to what they need as citizens in the country. So yeah, overall, that's kind of my gist on that.
Thank
Nice.
you.
Nice. So if you repeat the question one more time.
So, what are some of the effects that you've noticed in specifically Anguilla around tourism, positively or negatively?
Yeah, I think that tourism in Anguilla as our main industry, or some might argue our only industry, but as our main industry, it has really it's an industry that has created a lot of opportunities, not just for the people individually, but for the island as a whole. Um, and so that's the positive. You know, there's a lot of economic, or there was a lot of economic activity as a result of tourism. I think that, you know, just like in every other Caribbean island, we all see the opportunity where, excuse me, where we can, where we should really be moving away, not, and I would not say just abandon tourism in its entirety, but where we need to become less reliant on tourism. For example, in Anguilla, we had Hurricane Irma, and that destroyed the hotels and that destroyed tourism for a period of time. So now you have a large section of the population without work, which is very similar to what is taking place now. So I think from a negative standpoint, we are reliant on tourism, and that's been the case for decades. But in terms of the positives, it has really everything we see in Anguilla today is as a result of the success of our tourism product. And I can't necessarily say that I'm mad at that. What I would say going forward though is that, because I'm one that believes in, we have to respect the past, we have to respect what has brought us this far, and while we respect that, we also have to find innovative ways to move forward in the future and kind of avoid some of the mistakes. So right now in Angola, as a result of COVID, there are so much of the population is without work, and it's not just if you work in a hotel, but all of the different businesses that kind of feed off of off of what's going on in tourism. So it's to figure out, like, for me, I think that our goal, and personally my, through our company, our mission is to figure out how do we create more opportunities for people, not just in Anguilla, but throughout the region, to live a better quality of life, to have more opportunities, and to do that outside of tourism. And how we intend to do that is through technology, because we believe that, you know, even in this space right now that is COVID-19, you know, if you're in the technology industry, in fact, you're doing a lot better, right? In some cases, you're doing a lot better. So how is it that we use this time, use this period to educate our people, you know, to retool, retrain our people, so that going forward, we won't be so vulnerable to externalities in all of these different spaces. So I would say that, you know, tourism again has done us well, and we do in Anguilla have a program right now that we've been slowly rolling out to have persons come and apply to visit Anguilla, because we are COVID free and have been that way since April. So I can't say that I'm mad at tourism. You know, it's really been, it's been what has educated so many people. It's been what has created so many jobs, homes, you know, fed so many families. And in the same breath, I think it's important for us now to start to build outside of that, and train our people for more than tourism.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So one thing I wanted to add is so even if tourism, right? So for a small country like Anguilla, and the last conversation I had was with also somebody from Aruba, and she mentioned, I don't ever see a future without tourism, right? So for smaller countries that might never be without tourism, how do you think, and I'm gonna ask this question again because I asked it from the last video, how do you think we could ever create like a equitable balance where, yes, people are working in, majority are working in the tourism industry? How could we have people actually make should I say a good standard of a living, like make a living that is up to the standard of living, while also still inviting tourism, welcoming tourists?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would start by saying that I do see a future for Anguilla. Not that completely does away with tourism, because I mean, when you have such glorious land and seascapes, you don't just throw that away. I know I'm on a call with other West Indians, but I'll just throw that out there. You know, we're never going to say we're not interested in tourism. You don't do that. But I do believe that there is a future. There's definitely a future, not just for Anguilla, but for any island, particularly because of our size. Our size actually, some people look at it as a disadvantage. I look at it as an advantage, because when you think of, if you think of a large company, and if they want to make a change in some strategic change in the direction, and you have a whole board and a whole bunch of people that have to vote on it and do this, that, and the other. Whereas if you have a small company, you want to do something, it's quick. You turn around, right? And so likewise, in an island like Anguilla, we can pivot because of our size, 13,000 people, we can pivot very quickly. I think, and that's why I said it's so important for us to train our people, because if we do say, if we make an aggressive push and say, look, within the next 10, 15 years, we want to have XYZ or X percentage of our, X percentage of our population reliant on, X percentage of our population working in technology, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. We just have to know, okay, I'm going to train my people, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and that's how it goes. But I would never say that we cannot or would not.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that the Caribbean can do without tourism ever. And I would not want to ban people from coming to my country, because hello, you have to know how splendid it is, get to experience it. Know all of the Caribbean, respect it. That's another thing. But with tourism, sometimes I feel like there's not as much respect put on our names as it should be. But yeah. Belinda, you wanna answer that?
Yeah, I think that I think on a broad scale, like is it
Tahira. Tahira.
was explaining, is that like in a broader scale, like she said, tourism has brought in jobs, tourism has educated a lot of people, had provided so much opportunity for a lot of people. But I think when thinking about it on a microscopic scale, when it comes to like the individual person, I do think that may have some effects, because I'm speaking personally from St. Lucia and specifically in the south of the island, where it's like we have all these tourism going on. But for example, there's a hospital that burned down in 2012 that got put into a stadium and has still not been built. So it's like we know that we're getting money from tourism, but I don't think the people are seeing the results of that. They're not, like, the money is not being used specifically for the people. It's, I feel like the money is being used to create even more things. Like, it's a cycle, like, get the tourists, get the money from them, then build something else for them to come again and do. Like, I feel like that's what's happening specifically from my personal experience, from what I think. So I think that's where the issue comes in, where it's like, how do you allow tourism to continue, and how do we reap the benefits as citizens of that specific island? Because I don't feel like, personally, I don't feel like we are. I don't feel like, even when you come to how locals treat other locals, like, I've gone into restaurants and it's like, if a white person comes in, they get their service faster, their food is most likely cooked better, like all this stuff. And I feel like that's an effect of tourism, because it's like we see them so much higher than ourselves, and I don't understand why, because Caribbean people are beautiful people. Like, we have such an amazing culture. So why are we putting these people, who, nothing against them, but why are they above us? Like, why do we treat them better than we treat ourselves? And I feel like that can be viewed as, like, again, in a microscopic scale and in a large scale, like, that I think is the main issue. I think when we think about tourism, is just that how it affects the individual person and not the country in general. Because I do think it has benefits to the country, but I think especially people who don't work in tourism get negatively affected by tourism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. Like, so the reason I asked that is because, just like Valinda pointed out, it's a lot of times tourism becomes exploitative, where people come to our islands and they benefit from that experience and all of that, right? I've seen people come to Jamaica specifically too as tourists, and they end up starting whole businesses from things that are from my country, but they have the money and the resources to be able to start a business and build relationships with local people, because local people, when they look at tourists, they see money, right? So that's another thing. There's a whole other conversation, like Belinda brought up, about how we view ourselves and how we view tourists. It's not a equally beneficial relationship, I guess, because of our colonial history. So there's a lot of things mixed up in it too, in our mentality. So
right, that's a good point that you made. Just because, and so you were saying something, I want to play a bit of devil's advocate, because I think that both of the points are excellent in terms of people come to our islands, and in some cases they do exploit the situation, and they take opportunities that perhaps we don't necessarily have the capital to jump on right away. And I think that for islands in the Caribbean, because we want to move forward, and the world is moving so quickly right now, right? So the question then is, how do we move with the times while still protecting our people? Because of course you can say, oh, we're gonna allow all of these foreign businesses to come in and take over, and then we'll be ahead. But are the people ahead? No, because if the people are still in poverty, then they're not ahead. So what's the balance there? And I think the balance is understanding what are the areas that our people can and should be developing in. How do we train them in that? How do we empower people to operate from an abundance mindset and to go out there and shape their perspective outside of our islands? Because if you're just in the island, that's all you know. But if you go out, you'll see and experience different things. And then how do we, when a project does come and a project is proposed, how do we look at the project and not necessarily say, I don't want to do this, I'm not, adopt such a protectionist approach, but instead say, how is it that we can come to an agreement that, one, protects our people, and two, creates more long-term opportunities for our people? So it's not a yes or no. There's a gray area in there, and it's a balance is I think the word I'm looking for. It's not a yes, we're gonna have foreign businesses invest, or no, we're gonna keep them out and it's just gonna be us. Because if we keep them out and it's just us, then all we have is what we have, right? But if we say, how do we find that balance and ensure and put the policies and what's not in place to protect our people? Because in the example you used, Valinda, you shared there was a hospital that burned down in 2012.
Yep.
And it's 2020 now. We're actually 2021. The year's about to be done, and it's not built back. So why is that the case? And then how is it that, okay, we have these different foreign projects come in? How is it that we, and I don't know obviously the situation, but how do we then ensure that if those projects are coming into the island, there's some funds from that are earmarked for the redevelopment of whether it's a hospital or schools and what's not. So it's finding that balance and taking advantage and working with external teams, but not doing that in a way that exploits your own people. And I will say, though most people don't agree, don't like to hear it, you can't, somebody within the system has to be facilitating the exploitation of the people, you see? So like, you can't just come in and just start something. Like there's somebody is facilitating this. So how do we also create an environment where that is not acceptable? Just doing things for me, and not really observing how this will impact my people as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I wanted to say too, is a lot of this is about our leadership. We don't have people focused leadership. I will say for Jamaica, because I don't want to generalize and then I'll be held accountable for that. But in Jamaica, we don't have very people focused leadership. A lot of it is very selfish. The leaders we have, they really care about themselves just to make sure that money is coming in, so that they can also benefit from that kind of development. But then when we owe the money and we can't pay it back because we don't know where the money went, it wasn't invested into the people, wasn't invested into the right things so that we can, make that money back, then we are not holding these leaders accountable. This also connects to like what we were saying about how we think about ourselves as a people. A lot of us are not holding, in Jamaica, I'll say, we don't hold our leaders accountable. The politics is very, very sticky. So that ties into all of this. And who's allowing people, these investments to come in? Who's benefited from it? We need to see all the paper trail, and we need to keep track of that as a people. Also, we have to be responsible for ourselves too, because we make the country. To me, we are the ones who drive change in our country, or we're supposed to be the ones who drive change in our country, but it doesn't really happen.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I think that mentality is definitely corrupt in our leadership, but also I think it's a island-wide thing. Like, I think that we have this mentality that we cannot create the change we want to see, kind of. And a lot of times, specifically in St. Lucia, again, where it's like, even if I'm talking to my friend and I'll be like, oh, let's do this. This is a great idea. They'll be like, okay, but it's not going to work. Like, St. Lucia is just going to shut you down. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, a lot of people shoot down these ideas that could possibly help the situation at hand, because it's like we don't have confidence in ourselves to do these things. Like, white people go and they're like, I have an idea, I'm going to do it. Like, they have this like go mentality, specifically as I see in America. Like, they go for what they want. And I think that a lot of Caribbean people don't do that because they're scared of failure. And I don't think our government gives us the confidence to even want to try to do that, because it's like we just kind of depend on, like, it is what it is. I feel like that's our mindset. Like, this is just how it is, so we're just going to live like this. And I feel like that's the mindset that's kind of like island-wide. And of course, there are people who don't have that mindset and who are going to, go for what they want regardless. But I think that is a general mindset that I see a lot of people have. And it's sad to see. And I even think that I would have that if I didn't leave and like see other things and like compare it to other people. So I think that's so sad to see, because like a lot of my friends have so much potential, whether it be they do pottery or whatever it is. Like, there's so many talented people in the islands, not even creatively, but also like people who could be lawyers or business owners or whatever. And I don't think they take advantage of that. And I also don't think the country provides them with programs to kind of develop those skills that they have. And I think that's also a thing where like the money could be used for things like that. Right. Yeah.
So I kind of want to add to that discussion, because I have similar and then some other views on that. I agree that I was looking at Les Brown as a part of SDM 2020 this week with the OECS. And what Les Brown said is that if we want to see sustainable development in the Caribbean, it starts with a mindset shift, right? And I am not of the belief that a government can change your mindset. I'm not of the belief that a school can change your mindset. I'm of the belief that as an individual, you have to figure out how to change that mindset. And when you're dealing with children, the responsibility really falls on the parents. And if you have parents, then it, again, I guess, then goes back up to say, as a country, there has to be a mindset. Um, and I think that from that mindset, that as you say, I can do it. That can do mindset that you see many, and it's not just white Americans; it's Americans in general. It's the U.S. You're going, and you're not afraid of failure. And I think that when if we as a people commit to saying that, look, we're going to adopt an abundance mindset, meaning there's more in the world. Like I'm not Valinda doing something doesn't mean that I can't do it. I don't have to hate on her. And if we can adopt a mindset that I'm gonna fail, I tell my team all the time, the day I woke up and realized like, I can fail until I'm 50 and I'm still gonna keep going, I was immediately free, because then I didn't have myself on this crazy timeline to say, yes, this, that, then the other, and I'm okay to fail. And once you're okay to fail, then you're gonna keep trying. And success is just a statistics game. You have to fail a certain amount of times to be able to succeed. And that's what I don't think our people have, that mindset. And that mindset comes from perspective. You both are not in the Caribbean. That doesn't mean that you have to leave the Caribbean. I don't even think you need, like, I was speaking to the high school with the fish farmers the other day, and I said, like, stop, like, come off the internet. Like, when I say come off the internet, like, get off a WAP, whatever it is. And like, there's so much content on the internet that can fill you up, that can add to you, that can help you develop that mindset, and that can kind of, I look at the YouTube motivational videos all the time and it fills me up. So I feel like we have to take that responsibility within ourselves. And once we do that, we'll start to see the change that we hope for. As part of it, with the support of the governments and institutions that can kind of advance us a little faster.
I definitely agree. I love how this shifted to our mindset around tourism and even ourselves, our pride as people, because Caribbean people are very prideful, right? But that has to be, I think, for longevity or the sustainability of the tourism industry and creating an equitable balance, there has to be a mindset change. And I realized that people, because for me, when I left that I started to view things a certain way. And I think there's a benefit to looking from the outside in. And I wish more Caribbean people got to travel, because I have friends who work in the tourism industry, and I have friends who live in Jamaica still, who do not want to live in Jamaica because they view the island is from a negative viewpoint because of how historically it's been in terms of the crime rate and all of that, and how they see America, because there's a certain image that's created of America and foreign and the promises of it, and it's like Jamaica's not living up to that, so they want to leave, right? And everybody can leave the island. So I wish that this mindset change could happen, so that people don't always see white skin as better. I had a conversation like this last night too. It's just funny how it's coming around because of how we really view whiteness. It really affects us. And that leads me to the imagery of tourism, right? So the images that are used to promote tourism, when I look at a lot of the websites for the hotels, I realize that it's usually us in servitude, like Black or indigenous Caribbean people selling or serving, I should say, serving white people. So I wanted to know, what do you think are some of the effects of that? And in the conversation that we're already having so far, it's kind of evidence of the kind of mentality that it's created.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll start. So my dad owns a beach bar, Dune Preserve. And I've been a waitress before. When I was younger, I would go in and wait and whatnot. So I think it's two things. First of all, I don't see anything wrong with showcasing us serving, because I don't look at it I don't look at it as servitude. I look at it as service. So that's my thing. And as a marketer, I also know that the images have to be reflective of who your target demographic is. So in an island like Anguilla, where the majority of persons that visit the island are Caucasian, we're not going to put, um, let me see, Asians on the. There's nothing wrong with like Asian people. So I'm trying to get to China, right? But that's not our primary target demographic. So it would not make sense to put that on there because that's not who our ads are targeting. You want to create ads that the people look like who it is you're targeting, and then that's a whole other discussion. But it's more economics than anything, right? So that's one side of it. So I don't see anything wrong with it because I don't see anything wrong with being of service to people. I don't look at it as servitude. But when put that in the context of individuals who do not look at it as service, but rather in many ways feel like they are in a position of servitude, when you put that in the context of people who are maybe in situations where they are being exploited, then that's where you have a problem because those images just kind of reinforce who it is they see, that who it is they are, and they don't look at it as, oh, I'm being of service and I want to offer the best service possible. When I was working in the restaurant, I never felt like a servant. I was just happy like to be able to share my culture with people, whether they were black, white, Latino, whatever. But I think that when you have an environment that is similar to the one that you guys initially described, where people are being exploited, where there are all these challenges, and then from a mindset perspective, you feel so limited, then when you have an image like that, it's like, here we go again. Look at how you got me, right? So that's I'm trying to be balanced and like share, but that's it.
Yeah.
Going back to your word that you said, it's about the balance, because I do agree from a marketing standpoint that if you want white people, you're gonna put white people on the poster. If you want Asian people, you're gonna do that on the poster. So I definitely think that when it comes to hotels and stuff like that, I could see where they're coming from. But I'll put an example for like even during Corona. There's a page called like St. Lucia Travels, and they posted the fact that St. Lucia was corona free and da 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 da. That has nothing to do with hotels and nothing to do with anything, but it was white people like laying on the beach saying like St. Lucia is corona free. So like for me, that doesn't make any sense, right? I think if you're marketing St. Lucia, like if you're generalizing the island and just marketing it towards like, okay, this is St. Lucia, this is what it's about, then I do think you want to see St. Lucian faces on there, or just faces of people from that island. I think that's what I would want to see as a St. Lucian. And even as a foreigner, like I'm gonna be like, okay, these are the St. Lucian people, like these are who I'm gonna be around. I'm going to their home, like this is what I'm. But I think that is when the unbalance comes in, is because every single thing that has to do with island promotion then has foreigners on it. Like I haven't seen a one thing besides like local photo shoots or stuff like that where they put the people of St. Lucia as the main faces of things, except for like hotel stuff where we are of service to people. So that's why I'm like, I think it's just the unbalance of that is what then comes full circle to give us the mentality we have now that, that they're better or they're superior in some way. I think that's what it is. So I think that if hotels would do their thing and then everybody else would be like, okay, let's do this, then I think it would be a good balance between, okay, this is marketing and then this is us. I think the difference has to come at some point.
I just before you talk, Susanna, I just want to put a shameless plug in here that in Anguilla, so we work with Anguilla Tourism. We do a lot of work in our agency. We like to say we create digital experiences. So one of the things we do is we create content for Anguilla Tourism that they share in their markets across the world, and we do feature our local people because we think that it's like people don't come to the island. If you want to go to the beach, you can go anywhere, like Maldives, like you can go Seychelles, like all these places. But people come for us to Anguilla because of the people, because of the relationships they've developed with the people. And so we felt that it was important as part of our work with tourism to ensure that the stories that were told featured the people. So you'll learn so much about our history, about culture, and that those stories are told by Anguillian people, and it has had a positive effect, not just from a tourism perspective, but even on like people are seeing themselves as a part of the promotion of the island, which is really useful.
I think that is so great, and I think that actually something that all islands should consider doing. And I don't know if all islands do that or not, but I think that if we had people like you, for example, who cared about the people and not about like just themselves, in every like bit of in every whatever office
Mhm.
tourism they need to be in, then I think it would be a balance of that. Because I think when people come to again St. Lucia, they learn about that stuff when they get there. But I don't think that is ideally what is promoted. Like what's promoted is the ocean, the trees, the sun, like and the music.
Paradise.
Like that's what's promoted. It's not really
Mhm.
like come here and learn about um how St. Lucia was in sugar plantations and stuff like that, like the history of it. Like I don't think that's what promoted. I think I think tourism is good, but I think it's how you market it again, like how
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
showcase what you want to give to people. And I think the way we market it in St. Lucia is more like here's everything. It's not like here's history, here's this. It's just like come and take what you want, leave whatever's left for us. It is what it is. Like I feel like that's what is kind of been our idea of it, which is
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. So I wanted to add to this because I thought, so you mentioned in plantation and the cultural experiences and stuff.
Mhm.
For the island, Jamaica is really a resort island. Like there's a lot of resorts in Jamaica. So what we found is that with these resorts being all inclusive, then people are, if even if they leave the resort, they go to specific places that the resort
Mhm.
intends for them to go, and they
Mhm.
don't interact with the local people. And the local people have been complaining because there are craft markets, there are experiences that people create in certain areas like Ocheria specifically, so that people
Mhm.
will cut, the farm people will come there to buy. But then what they found is that the resorts are making sure that their buses don't even pass there, so people don't even stop.
Right.
If they pass, they don't stop to interact with people. I've spoken to a number of people here, and it surprised me to find out that they stayed in the hotel. They never interacted with local people. They can't tell me about anybody they met in Jamaica except maybe the people on the beach that served them, right? And the images that are created of the Jamaican experience is really that: the white sandy beaches, laying on the beach, being served drinks, you know, just nothing
And
that has
that's
anything to do with us, really, like our
right.
culture. Yeah.
That is such a, I don't want to give this example because I don't want to get myself in trouble, but there are properties that I know. I find, first of all, I find that to be completely distasteful and disrespectful to the island as a whole. Those are things that disadvantage our people,
Mm.
right? Because but most of the hotels, their policy is, how do we get you here and get as much money from you as possible within this space?
Mm.
And so, like, the question then becomes, if we're looking for solutions, how does, as a country, as a government, from a tourism perspective, how does a government kind of regulate that? Well, can you regulate that? Can you tell people that they cannot advertise their stuff internally? Okay, maybe not. But that comes back to the images. If it is that when you're promoting your island, you're telling this whole story and people have the opportunity to see that ahead of time, as opposed to just like some people lying on the beach or lying by the pool, then when they come, they're gonna be like, yo, what about those cane fees? I saw that in the promotions before. I want to go see that. What about this waterfall, or what about this experience? But if they don't have access to that ahead of time, so that's where I think from a tourism perspective, leaders in tourism then have to make it their responsibility to tell the story of all their people, so that when people are going out doing the research on the island, they have the opportunity to engage with things. So when they go to the hotel and the hotel show them, well, we only go in here. No, 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 no. I want to see this.
Yeah.
I want to see this. But there's some people that do that. I can't go to a country and just stay in a hotel.
Yeah, me too. But not everybody does that. Some people really. So I'll speak for America because I've been here for a while. And in America, a lot of people just want to go and lie down on the beach, honestly. Like, and they see, and that's what they're sold, so they're going to do that. Like that's what they think we have to offer. So they never come and interact with anybody because they're working like 24/7 here while they're here. So they just want to go lay down, be served. And
Mhm.
another, speaking of plantations, another thing I wanted to say is about the selling of the, or let me say, redesigning, I don't know, like the redesigning of these plantations and reuse of the plantations, because in Jamaica
Mhm.
we have used plantations, right? And I realize a lot of them are now estates, but a lot of them are like luxury estates, right? and luxury estates that people go and stay on, rich people go and stay on, and they recreate the colonial feel. The people are literally in these like maids dresses things, serving the rich white people, and they're exclusive, so we don't really see it unless we seek it out. And I've read people who are like travel bloggers who has written about this, and they're
Belinda's
like,
ready. She's
huh?
like,
What?
I said Belinda's and she's like, let me hear, because this is the first I'm hearing this. I'm just
It's a weird like thing. I find it very weird when I read the articles that are talking about the exotic colonial feel that they've had on these estates, and they've heard like the humming of the ancestors and weird stuff. I'm like, why would you want to go to somewhere where my ancestors were being tortured? It was horrible. Like that shouldn't even be used. These guest houses shouldn't be used as touristy luxury places that you spend a whole bunch of money to go experience, when you should really be going and learning about the history and respecting that, honoring that, because my ancestors died because of yours too. Okay. But and they preserve some of the things too. I've seen in St. Lucia specifically too that there was this one estate that I found where they literally make sure they preserve the sugar processing machine. And because I didn't know what it was when I first saw it, and I googled the name on it. I forgot the name on it, but there's a specific British company that used to make these sugar processing machines, and they preserved it. And there's people who have weddings on these estates, and I'm like, oh my god, it's weird to see people having very happy moments on plantations and saying, "Oh, it was nice." Like, oh,
no, it can't be nice.
Yeah, I just googled that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Put the link in here. I need to see this.
I
Yeah.
do. I have
When,
I have names.
yeah, when I was younger, I went to a, I think it was a cocoa plantation in St. Lucia, where it was like a school trip, and like it was like zip lining through there. They gave us like food, and we also had like to walk through and see the old plantation houses and all kind of thing. And I feel so stupid because I never realized that that whole thing was a hotel that whole entire time. So I just Googled it and I just realized that what you're saying, that's crazy that they are using these plantations as hotels and resorts now.
Yep.
Crazy.
And they specifically like recreate kind of like feelings of that. They make
That's the
sure
problem for
that
me.
it is weird. It is
Yeah.
very weird
And
to
I
see.
think too, I'm happy that they preserve things, because even in St. Lucia we have Pigeon Point where you could go and walk up this whole thing and you could see like old cannons from war and all stuff like that. But now that you mention it, the preservation doesn't really matter if it's being disrespected on a daily basis.
It
So
is.
yeah,
They
that's
put it in pictures and things, just
yeah,
making it look like it is. They're glorifying the old days, and that's not a good
That's the
image.
problem.
That doesn't represent me as a Jamaican in any way. Like, I don't want to see that.
I think it's just the overall idea. Like when you look at it from a business standpoint, everybody just wants to make money, and I think that's the general problem of the world. Just like money
Mm-hmm.
runs everything. So it's like they're not gonna have a plantation just sit there. People go to it like every once in a while, but no, they're gonna like develop it to a way to like she said, just get the maximum amount of money while these people are here. So I think it's great. I think it's crazy that they would turn this into a hotel. I wouldn't be surprised if they like would make you like pay to enter for you to walk around, but I never realized they actually made it into a space where people could come and like do these things.
There's some of them are even owned by British people, Americans, you know, and there's also like this kind of disconnect even in some of our local people, because I remember the Miss Jamaica World, I think last year it was a big controversy because she went on a slave plantation, right, that was owned by this white Haitian woman who came to Jamaica, and she's mm, mm, there's a mythical story about her being like involved in voodoo and things, but she was a wicked woman anyway, right? She had a whole bunch of slaves and things, and she went on the plantation and took pictures of this, like, of herself dressed almost like this woman, like guess reincarnating her in some way. Yeah, I know. So, and I realized this girl who did it, she's upper class, like one of those uptown people in Jamaica. So this disconnect with our history, or colonial history, and she went and did that as that this part of the competition for the costumes or whatever you dress as, something that represents your culture. There's a part that's specifically for your culture. Yes, and she went dressed as the Wicked Witch of Rose Hall on the plantation, probably overlooking the dungeon where our ancestors were held. Yeah. And it's just, and this place I think is owned by Americans now. Maybe I'm mistaken, but it's owned by white people now. And they sponsored her. They sponsored her in the competition, and she agreed to it. And even when people came out and say, "No, this is not right. You shouldn't be doing this," she was unapologetic. She was like, "Oh, forget it. I don't really care. I would dress as a slave owner if I want on a plantation." Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because what that does is reinforce again those it a lot, and some of it is like, like a sneak diss, like very subtly reinforcing these things of just reminding you of who you are, or who they want you to be, rather, not who you are.
Yeah, I think all these things are what like give us the mindset that it is what it is, because we don't. It is like we see that, not that we don't care about ourselves, but as a whole, I think everybody has that mindset of like, just as an individual, like I'm gonna do what I have to do for myself at the end of the day, right? And that mindset obviously can bring positive outcomes and negative outcomes. And I think going back to just the whole idea of tourism, that the fact that they're doing these in these plantations is a negative effect, that we're selling and exploiting historical landmarks, all these, like, we're selling our land to other people that are not even respecting it. And then it's not even for local people to benefit off of. Like, this is all not for us. And when we go there, we're seeing it in a different light, which again reinforces, like you said, the whole mentality of it and the whole perception of how we view ourselves. So I think the idea of tourism and just our mindset and the government and how we view ourselves all kind of do this thing that we can't get out of, because it's just a whole systematic issue at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now we need to start viewing it as that. Yeah. But I don't know if you guys have anything else to say, but I'm going to wrap it up here. This was a great discussion. It spanned wide and far, further than I thought possible. Thank you so much, Belinda. Thank you so much, Tahira. I think you guys brought so much to this conversation that was needed.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah, I would just close by just encouraging everybody to, don't allow anybody to kind of pigeonhole you and tell you what you could and should be. And focus on working on your mindset and expanding your possibilities and perspective. Even if it's creating a vision board on Instagram or Pinterest, just know that there's more. And let's continue to work to create opportunities for ourselves within and beyond tourism.
Yes. Amen.
Trying to be less ignorant of the world around us is a big way to do that.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more Caribbean conversation.